What is up, YouTube, and welcome to our Narrative Crusades index card review. Today, we will be looking at Catan. Are they killers or are they kittens in 10th edition? Our new campaign pack is nearly finished. You can check this out in our Discord. No hints at all from the picture there. Something to do with a spaceship with acid burns all over it. It's one of our fortress worlds in Segmentum Pacificus. What could the focus be? Who knows? Thanks again to our Patreons. We will be giving away a free combat patrol again this month. We've done our second giveaway, so the third one is on the way. We are fairly confident we will be giving away two this time. So, what are the Catan? Well, in the lore, they are the first gods of the Milky Way, one of the first sentient species. They used to live inside suns. They're related in some ways to the Necron tier. There is quite a lot of background. Some of it is soaked in myth and lore. However, nowadays they have been captured by the Necrons and broken into shards. There are several named ones that we know about. The Deceiver managed to convince a very friendly race of people to turn themselves into metal golems. The consequences were dire. They lost an inch of movement. They fought a war against the old ones, which they sort of lost and then spent 60 million years sulking. But they're back now and they're all cheerful and happy. You have the Nightbringer. He is literally in every single race's psyche as some element of death. He has sucked his way in to the human race. He's sucked his way in some ways, possibly even to Eldar. The exception, of course, being orcs, mostly because they can't draw. I think the best thing to do with him is put him back together, send him against the Tyranids and hope they don't find some way to eat him, because that would cause a lot of problems. You've got the Void Dragon. One of the shards was perhaps captured by the Emperor and may have been used to influence the priests of Mars, but that is a lot of conjecture there, possibilities and maybes. There have been a couple more mentioned, including one pyrotechnic one that got sent against a bunch of Tyranids and burnt them all to crisps. There's one known as the Swarm as well, but very little is known about him at all. What do they look like on the table for us then? Well, they've all got the following keywords. They've all got monster and they've all got fly. So we're not going to be able to run through any buildings with them. The bases are generally quite small for a monster. The models are quite old, except for the Void Dragon now. So they're going to be quite easy to hide, but it does have all of the benefits of being a monster and the benefits of fly. They are not lone operatives, despite the fact that they have the character keyword, so they can be shot and we cannot hide them. But they do have necrodermis, and what that does is halve the damage. Now, that sounds quite good. Most of the time, really, it's just -1 damage. But of course, there are going to be times when that's going to be quite helpful. They're all quite tough at toughness 11. They have also got a 4+ invulnerable save and 12 wounds. So fairly tough overall. So what about each of the individual ones? Well, firstly, you've got Darth Death, also known as the Nightbringer. He is literally death incarnated in many ways. He has a ranged attack, which is quite nasty. Range 18, D3 blast. So you're looking at 2, maybe 3 attacks against a tangible unit that you really want to be hitting. You're not going to want to use this against chaff, but if you've got nothing else to shoot, why not? Hitting on 2s, very reliable. Strength 12 is very good. Toughness 6 is obviously still being wounded on a 2. AP 2 puts a lot of things on their invulnerable save anyway, and then quite a horrific D6 +3 damage is going to be potentially blowing up tanks. Then we've got his Scythe. I'm not a huge fan of his strike. 6 attacks is good, 2+ is good, 14 strength is horrific, AP 4 is brilliant. The problem comes to the damage of D6. I just don't like D6 damage, especially in melee when you're trying to kill something quite big. If you roll a 2 and a 1, you've just about managed to kill a Terminator, and then the rest of his mates are going to slap you back. The Scythe is pretty nasty though. 14 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 8, toughness 4 things are being wounded on 2s, AP2, again, put onto our invulnerable save. And then we've got damage 2 as well. So a lot of potential there. And then he has a final little ability, which is at the end of the fight phase, you can drain life. So you roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 6, not within engagement range, within 6. And you can cause some extra nasty mortal wounds that way. So some potential there. He is also the cheapest at 255 points, probably because you didn't have to use any bright paints on him. Next, we've got Lokis Mentor, the Deceiver, the great one who managed to convince the Necrons to turn themselves to metal for their own good and rob them of that movement. He is 265 points, which coincidentally is only just more expensive than 3 Convergence of Dominions. He has this grand illusion capability, which is quite badly worded in terms of the fact that it doesn't really follow the normal wording for when you redeploy, because it actually says redeploy once you've both deployed your armies, not after you've decided who's gone first. So that's a bit of a kick to the curb for him if that's actually how it's supposed to be played. Hopefully that's going to get errated if it is actually phrased badly. In terms of his ranged attacks, he's got 6 attacks with his Cosmic Insanity. Now, this is potentially a bit of a ranged assassination attempt here because it's anti-character 4+. That's characters. That's not infantry. That's any character. You can do this against the Swarm Lord. So on a 4+, he's going to be causing devastating wounds after he's hit, and he's hitting on 2s, and he's got precision. So even if Mr. Swarmy is hiding amongst all of his mates, there's a good chance he's going to be hurting them. Now, Swarmlord's got other protections as well, but any character that's hidden in a unit, anti-character 4+, we're probably looking at 3, if we're lucky, 4 mortal wounds. If we can combo that with something else somehow, like some death marks, then that's not potential chip damage anymore. Now you're looking at anything with 5 or 6 wounds is going to die. Now, realistically, we're looking at 2 rounds of shooting. Is that going to happen reliably? Maybe not. In combat, though, we've got 8 attacks, hitting on 2s. Strength 8 is very good. AP 3 is very good. And I really like flat damage 3. It's just very reliable, very tangible, hard-hitting, elite killing. I really like him for that. Right, we've got the poster boy. This is a fantastic model. He's 270 points. He's the second most expensive. It's the Void Dragon. It's his bigger base. It's his better model. So you have to pay points for that, obviously. Also, by the way, harder to hide him on the board. He has 2 ranged attacks, and we can use both of them because we're a monster. He's got the Spear of the Void Dragon, which is anti-vehicle 2+. That's brilliant. AP 3, D6 plus 2 damage. I love the fact that it's strength 4. He's throwing a spear that's bigger than a Terminator at you. If you're a vehicle, you're toast. Anything else, you might be okay because it just doesn't like vehicles. Not quite sure why. Who cares? Throw it at the nearest Land Raider. You've got the Voltaic Storm, which is quite similar in some ways to the Monolith's ranged attack weapon. It's D6 plus 3, blast, and sustained hits 2. With D6 plus 3 attacks and blast, you might be lucky and getting 2 6s on the hits. So you might be looking at 8, 9, 10 hits. With a bit of luck, it can become even swingier than that. Strength 7 is good. AP 1 is a bit meh, but damage 2, you're potentially going to be slapping down half a squad of Space Marines a turn. That's fantastic. Also, quite good perhaps at chopping your way through some Horde. Then you've got your melee weapons. You've got the Spear of the Void Dragon. Once again, anti-vehicle 2+, but this time because he's stabbing you with it instead of throwing it at you, it's strength 12. It's still D6 plus 2 damage, and it's 5 attacks. That's still pretty nasty. You're looking at a minimum of 3 damage, so a lot of what the Deceiver's throwing out, but he also has a sweep attack, also hitting on 2s, strength 8. Only AP 1, not so impressive. But then, because he brought his sneaky buddy, Canoptek with Spider with him, he's got some Tailblade attacks as well. So overall, he's actually got a substantive melee profile and not a bad ranged profile. We're also looking like we're in a pretty heavy vehicle meta. So he's kicking out quite a lot of attacks that can damage quite a lot of different things. Oh, also, on top of that, by the way, if you actually select an enemy vehicle within 12 in your shooting phase, on 2+, you deal D3 mortal wounds to it, and you get that many back. So, hang on a minute. At the beginning of your turn, you get D3 back because you've got reanimation protocols. If you are sensible, you've got your Canoptic reanimator nearby, that's another D3 back. And then if you target a vehicle nearby, that's another D3 back. So you're getting 3 D3 healing a turn if the enemy has brought vehicles and you throw this boy at them. That might be a thing that's going on there. That suddenly makes his tankiness very, very, very sustainable. Finally, we have the boy who wants to be a real Catan. He's got no name. That's why he's the most expensive at 280 points. You're paying for the fact that you get to name him yourself. He's not Thor with his little seismic assault because he can throw out 6 attacks at strength 8 AP2 and a piddly little D3 damage. However, he does have the assault keyword, so he can be quite quick with that. And it has sustained hits 1. His attacks are pretty good as well with his crackling tendrils. He's 8 attacks. That's the most on the board so far. Strength 9, bit of a shame because it's not 10 and we really want to be throwing this guy at elite infantry. AP3, very good. And then there's that swingy D6 damage again. So where does this guy really come in on his own? There's 2 places he comes in on his own. For a start, if he advances, you pick him up off the board and put him down anywhere you want. That is an absolute game changer because your opponent has to be thinking about his backline for the entire game. He can then still shoot his assault tendrils because it's an assault weapon and he counts as having an advance move. Finally, we have this enhancement possibility. Not entirely sure still that he's supposed to be able to take this, but he is a character. And they did also specifically say that he cannot be the warlord. Now, if they've specifically written that he cannot be a warlord in there, and they haven't said he can't take an enhancement, then there's a possibility this guy can also take the 4+ feel no pain enhancement, at which point he goes from being pretty good to being exceptional. So, overall, which one of these kittens is our winner? I'm kind of feeling like the Void Dragon is my Catan of choice at the moment. We're in a pretty heavy vehicle meta. There's a lot of Land Raiders floating around at the moment. There's Rhinos all over the place. There's Lehman Russes, and this guy just chops them to pieces. And if I'm finding not many vehicles on the table, as long as he's not throwing his anti-vehicle spear at them, everything else is still pretty reliable. The only thing he's not really good at is killing Tyranids. So if you're taking Tyranids, let's get some practice in with Death and consider the Nightbringer instead. A final thank you again to our Patreons. Please leave a like, please leave a subscribe, and then go and check out our campaign in Discord.